Hello and welcome to Meadow Bakery. In this video, I'm going to show you how to bake your own bread at home. With COVID-19 happening, bread is running out of shops and it's very difficult to find, but you can make your own bread at home. So I've got some flour in here and some butter. I'm just going to rub this in together. You can see I've rubbed in all my butter. There are a few lumps in there. You just keep on rubbing it until they're all disappeared into the flour. When this is ready, I'm going to add in some yeast. I've got some packaged yeast that I'm going to use, which is fast action yeast. If you've run out of yeast and you can't find yeast in the shops, which is actually happening at the moment, you can actually make your own. I have made a video showing how to make your own yeast. So as I said, if you can't find yeast in the shops, you can actually make your own. It's usually called sourdough starter. That's the yeast you need. I make sourdough bread, so I have some starter already made. I'm going to show you what it will look like when you've made it. This is in a jar that I use normally. This is my usual starter. It's a few months old. Actually about a year old or so. I keep it in the fridge when I don't need it and feed it when I need to use it. So at the moment, it's got a little bit of water on top, you can see. It needs feeding, but I won't do it now. I'll do that in another video. I've got a video that I've already made showing how to make starter. So I've got this starter and I have another starter that I started almost 2 weeks ago. This is made with a different flour. Most flours work. It doesn't have to be bread flour. You can use plain flour to make it. Okay, I'm just going to put this to the side. I've got videos on how to make this starter if you can't find yeast anywhere. Okay, back to the bread. So I've got my butter which I've rubbed in and I've added the yeast. I'm also going to add in some salt. I'm just going to grind some salt into there. You need about 2 teaspoons of this salt. Okay. Then I'm going to add in some sugar. This has got a teaspoon measure in it. It's a tablespoon, but it's got a teaspoon measure in there. So I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of sugar in there. Whatever sugar you have and whatever sugar you can find is good enough. Also, I'm going to add some vegetable oil. If you can't find vegetable oil, you can use all butter. And if you don't have butter and you only have oil, you can use that too. It doesn't matter. For the flour, you can use plain flour or strong bread flour if you can find it. But there's a bit of shortage in the shops for flour, so you can even use wholemeal if you like, but you may need to adjust your water content. Okay, I'm just going to make a well in the center to add my water. Just going to add it all in one go. Okay, I've added in my water and now I'm going to mix this with a spatula. You can use a wooden spoon if you like, but I like to use my spatula. Just mix it in until it starts to get thick and you can't mix it with a wooden spoon anymore. So you can see it's coming together into a dough. So it's okay to do it in the bowl initially if you don't make a huge mess all over. It's so much easier to do it in the bowl first. You can then get it out and knead it. But you can see I didn't add any more water at all. And it's a nice dough to work with. You see, it's very nice to work with. It's not too wet. If you add more water quickly, it will be too wet, and handling a wet dough is not really fun, especially when you're starting out. Okay, so now I need to put it on a surface. Just going getting out of there and then put it on my surface. Some people put flour on the surface to stop the dough from sticking, but I like to use oil so that I don't add any unnecessary flour to the dough, because it changes the texture of it as well if you add too much. So I'm just going to put a bit of oil on my work surface. That should be enough. I'm going to just roll my dough in it like that. And then you can start kneading. It doesn't really matter, whatever you can. If you've never baked bread, just knead it as much as you can. It doesn't have to be in any specific way. Just try to stretch your dough and kind of like knead it like that. Just get to feel your dough. It's not scary at all. So you just stretch your dough like that. You see? I'm just stretching it, pulling it away from your body. And then you bring it together and then stretch it again. You just try to get it as smooth as you can. It doesn't have to be for a specified time. You can also use a mixer. I've got a stand mixer, but I know if you're not used to baking and you don't bake a lot, you probably don't have a stand mixer. So this is just to show you that you can actually do it with your hands. You don't need to go out there and buy anything special to bake your bread at all. So some people give a time limit or need it for 10 minutes or anything. No, not at all. You can actually even make bread without kneading it. You can just mix your dough and leave it to bulk rise and then carry on with your baking. But if you can knead, it just gives a bit of a different texture, but it's still edible either way. Okay, so I've just been kneading my bread for a while. Everything's mixed in and the dough looks a lot smoother than when I first started it. So what I'm going to do, I put it in the bowl. You know the bowl I used to mix it in? There's no need to get a clean bowl at all. This one is perfectly fine. You can add a bit of oil if you have oil to spare, but because I know it's really hard to find as well. There's a run out of shops as well. So if you don't, it's fine. You can leave it. And then rub your dough in it like that. Just a little bit. It just helps it stop sticking to your bowl when you get it out later on. And then I'm going to get a piece of cling film. I'm just going to leave this, cover it, and leave this until it's about doubled in size. The time it will take to double depends on how warm your room is. So we just leave this and see how long it's going to take. As you can see, it's doubled in size as it should do. So I'm just going to take it out. Let me see. Look at that. Just going to put it on my work surface like that. Right, so as I said, I'm going to show you 2 ways to bake this bread. I'm going to bake it in a loaf tin, but if you don't have a loaf tin and you really need some bread, you can still bake it on a cookie tray with some greaseproof paper. So I've got it. All these bubbles are from the yeast. Okay, you can pop them or leave them, it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to shape the bread. You need it quite tight so that it doesn't spread while baking. Okay. Don't be too concerned about the shape as long as you get it right and it cooks right and it's edible. That's the most important thing. You'll be very pleased when you get a nice loaf of bread to eat, especially when you're just starting out. Tuck it in underneath. And you know where you see this seal? That's the one that will go at the bottom of your tray, because you don't want it to unravel when you're baking. It's better to seal it. You can tuck in the sides a bit as well. And can you see? Let's say this rough shape, okay? And what you do is you get lift it up. Don't be afraid to lift it up. Just lift it up and move it. Then you line your cookie tray with some parchment. Then you just place your bread on there. And then you cover it. If you're too scared that the bread will stick, you can oil one side of the cling film with some oil, and then you use that oiled side to cover your bread. You just cover it loosely, so the oil stops it from sticking onto your bread when it's risen, and you just peel it off when it's ready. You leave this to rise as well for about 30 to 40 minutes. It doesn't need to take as long as it did first time. I'm baking this bread in a loaf tin, so I'm just going to remove this. And I'm going to shape it again for my tin. So my tin is seasoned and ready to bake with. I'm just going to line the bottom. Sometimes bread can stick, especially sourdough bread. I notice it sticks quite a lot. So I've put some greaseproof paper at the bottom, and I'm going to butter and flour the sides. It's not really necessary for bread at all. It usually comes out. So if you want to, you just get a piece of paper and you put butter around the sides, and then you put some flour on the sides. But I'm not going to do it because it's not necessary. So I want my bread to be about this size. I'm just going to do that. Okay. So let me get my tin again. So it's about this size that I need my bread to be. Good. So I'm just showing you that it doesn't really matter how you get your bread shaped, as long as you shape it as best as you can. And I'm going to just drop my bread in there with the folded side down. You know where the seam is at the bottom? I'm just going to cover this and leave it to rise for about half an hour to 40 minutes. It mustn't double because it needs room to rise in the oven. Okay, so my bread is now ready. It's taken about 40 minutes to get ready. So I'm just going to remove my cling film. You can see it's risen up to the top of this tray. It looks beautiful. I've got some egg, salt and milk in there. Just going to mix this together. And I'm going to get a pastry brush. I've got this pastry brush that I'm going to use. So you just dip some of your brush in there. Brush on top. Okay, when you've brushed this on top, you can sprinkle some seeds on top if you like, or some poppy seeds, any seeds you want, pumpkin seeds, or you can just leave it plain. I'm leaving it plain today. Okay, so now it's ready to go in my preheated oven. I've preheated my oven to 180 degrees fan. If it's not fan, you can use 200 degrees Celsius. I'm going to bake this for about 35 to 45 minutes. It's been about 35 minutes. I'm going to open the oven to have a look. You can see it's well risen and it's nice and golden brown on top. It looks so beautiful. I'm going to get it out of the oven now and put it on my cooling rack. Right, so my bread is out of the oven. As you can see, it's absolutely gorgeous. And I'm going to tip it out. You tap your bread like at the bottom. I'm going to peel off this baking paper. You can see the bottom is nicely cooked. And I'm going to leave this to cool completely, and then I'm going to cut it and show you what it looks like inside. Okay, my bread is cooled down. I'm going to cut it and show you what it looks like inside. I'm going to use a serrated knife, which is the best knife to use for bread. I'm just going to cut it in the middle. I usually like cutting in the middle. Look at that. That's absolutely amazing. It's nice and fluffy, and it's still a bit warm. I left it warm because I like butter on it when it's nice and warm. And now I'm going to cut a slice and add some butter to it. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon. For more videos like this, visit my website www.meadowbrownbakery.com. Please like and subscribe to my channel.